In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Regan's 100,000 hand database. Regan's a winning 50NL regular, playing in the ring-fenced GG Ontario pool. We're going to be looking for any leaks, as well as identifying spots where his pool is unbalanced. We're also going to be discussing practical exploits for playing in passive pools. So this is GG, but this is like the ring-fenced pool, right? You said?
Yeah, it's GG Ontario, so it's a province in Canada, right? So only Ontario players are allowed to play in the GG pool there. And same with the other sites like PokerStars, the government. I mean, I guess they locked out poker internationally. Like I used to play on the global pool until about, I think it was 2021. They locked it out. So I didn't really play much cash until about a year ago, maybe a little bit more. But I started playing tournaments on PokerStars when they ring fenced it. I mean, I did really well on in the tournaments there, but just scheduling and just the time commitment at tournaments, I decided to switch to cash and I started studying raise your edge stuff, and I went from there.
Nice. And this is like primarily 50NL, this sample.
Yeah, it should be all 50NL, that one that I sent you.
Yeah. Is that like the main cash stake that you play? Have you played any other, but much volume in any other stakes at all?
For 6 max hold'em, pretty much that. I mean, I did play like when I was just messing around when I started cash, I did play 100 NL and some 25 here and there, but for 6 max hold'em, pretty much just 50 NL. I mean, on PokerStars, when I was playing all those tournaments, I was playing pot limit Omaha, and I was playing 1-2 and even some 500 buy-in, and I was doing really well back then, but I decided to switch to just straight hold'em 6 max, so pretty much just 50 NL the whole time.
Cool, nice one. And what's your thoughts about, firstly, do you have any sort of preconceptions about how the pool is playing, in just from like how you feel intuitively when you're at the tables?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of fun players that, I mean, they're just clicking buttons and having fun. There's probably a bunch of really tight regulars. Like I'm saying, like some of these guys, they have when they show their samples, like 500 hands, they're playing like 7 and 8 VPIP. And I would say there's less than 10 players that are really good, or that I would consider good, that give me trouble.
Okay. Sounds pretty nice. I guess having the regulars so tight means you get more hands to yourself with the action players.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they're so tight that like their calling ranges, even on the flop and turn, like sometimes I won't even barrel on the river or the turn. Like if their calling range is so strong, like anytime they call you, it's like, you know, they got the nuts. Like I don't even know how to, like, and if they 4-bet you or 3-bet you pre-flop, you know, you're continuing with just top of range is what I would usually, how I attack these guys, just because they just show up with the nuts. That's the only thing they have.
And do you have any like particular exploits, like other exploits that you're using against like the other regulars?
That's tough. I mean, you know, against the recreationals, I got a lot of notes on bet sizing. Some of these guys I've figured out, like when they're half pot betting, they're just bluffing. Anytime they use a bigger size, they got value. Against the regulars, to be honest, I don't really have much exploits that I use, because they're just coming in with like total top of range all the time. So I either, when they fight back to me, you know, I know they got it, so I usually just give up, which I don't know if that's good or not.
Yeah, we can look at that and probably refine that a little bit.
Yeah.
And what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, and do you have like a particular like study routine or system going on at the moment as well?
Oh, it's been a work in progress. I mean, I was studying the Raise Your Edge apprentice. I studied that in depth. I like, as you can see on this graph here, my non-showdown winnings in the red line, like I was fixing leaks as I go, studying on my own and reviewing stuff. Like, as you can see, I started making adjustments to what I was learning, but then I realized I was overdoing it, so my red line was going way down, and I sort of fixed that, and it seems to have stabilized out over 50 or 60,000 hands there.
Yeah, I can see this sort of around the 50K mark.
And what happened is I over adjusted to something I learned. So I realized that's what I was doing, and I fixed that. I was playing bad out of the big blind from the beginning. I was calling 3-bets out of position too often, so I pretty much went back to four betting or folding or calling with a narrow range, following the proper charts. Like, I would be calling pocket fours out of position against a cutoff 3-bet from middle position, which is just going to get hammered, right? They keep barreling on you.
Yeah, I mean, we can again, that's something that we can refine a little bit. In general, like, defending tight is going to be pretty good, especially against like a tight pool. If they're 3-betting tight, for example. But there's a couple of different ways that we can manipulate the ranges as well. But yeah, we'll get into that. Okay, so what I'll do then is I'll start with preflop, and I've got some notes on the pool. So I've got like a Notion document here. And I'm going to be using as well. So what I did, I uploaded the hands also into MDA Demon, so we can have a look at that as well and see how the pool's playing and compare that to the data that we have as well. But for preflop, because we don't yet have that built on our site, I've used another popular analysis site for getting the preflop data. So this might be a little bit hard to read, but this is essentially how the regs are playing on average. And when I say regs, I've essentially filtered out the obvious fish. So players with like a really high VPIP and players with a VPIP and PFR gap, because that tends to be the biggest indicator of a fish. And I also, as you said, because there's a lot of tight players, I noticed that as well. I put in like a minimum VPIP filter as well in there, just to get rid of those like super tight, like 10 VPIP players and stuff like that. So this should be like a decent representation of like the average regular in your pool. And a few things that I found. So I've highlighted here these red numbers. So this is like position versus position stats. And the things highlighted red are like the things that are standing out as leaks. These red numbers are 4-bet frequencies. So you can see like in MP1, or like this is like low jack, when out of position, the 4-bit frequency is 11. But this is too low. It's not the biggest sample, but then again, from like the hijack, that's also too low. So against these positions, you can 3-bet them a little bit, like at a high frequency in position, because you know that you shouldn't be getting 4-bet at the GTO frequency.
Okay.
And if you run that if you node lock that in a preflop solver, you will see that the biggest driving factor on your 3-bet frequency is how often the opponent 4-bets. So when it doesn't matter too much whether they call too much or fold too much. The main thing that kind of hurts you as the 3-better is how often they 4-bet. you'll see like quite drastic shifts in the 3-betting frequency just based on the opponent's 4-bet frequency. So it's something to keep in mind.
To be honest, I haven't seen these guys 4-bet with anything less than pocket kings, to be honest. Maybe queens sometimes. Once in a while, I see a guy show up with ace-5 suited, the solver favorite 3 or 4-bet hand, but these guys are just total value for 4-betting.
Nice. So, like, I guess looking at like Wizard, for example, pre-flop. So this is like NL50 GG. So if they open under the gun and we're on, say, like the button, we can get pretty out of line by taking these like mixed frequency hands and 3-betting them more often against this pool.
Oh yeah, I'm 3-betting stuff like that constantly for sure.
Nice. Because their 4-bet frequency here, like for example, UTG versus button, they should be 4-betting like 21% of the time. Which
they're definitely not doing that.
They're not hitting. So something to note. But in specifically cutoff versus button, I'm not sure if this is a sample thing as well, but they actually seem to be hitting the frequency better there.
Yeah, maybe cutoff versus button they are. I would say a lot of the regs are. They will play back at me in those positions. Out of other positions than that, I definitely don't think they're hitting that frequency for sure. But that was also one of my leaks too, is that when I was getting 4-bet, I was calling too wide when I probably should have been folding a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. If we assume that they're 4-betting too tight, then yeah, for sure we should proceed more
overfolding.
Passively against their 4-bets. And there's a couple of ways we can sort of figure out how to do that. So like I'll get back to that once we get to like the big blind stuff. So then the next thing is, so that's kind of like the 4-bets and how we can kind of 3-bet them. And like as well, BVB, like again, that's a low 4-bet percentage. So like blind versus blind, we can also attack them liberally with 3-bets.
Yeah, I probably am a little bit too low on my 3-bet out of the blind frequency, for sure, out of the big blind anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to hit. In general, when you look at like MDA, you see that most pools are not hitting that frequency up until like high stakes. So
yeah, exactly. But another thing I was also doing is when they're on the button and I'm big blind, like I wouldn't mind not 3-betting and taking it post flop, because these guys check back on even boards that are hitting their range big time. So like I start using an overbet strategy on the turn for sure, and I was getting major folds. So I don't know if that played into my thinking, but that's probably part of the reason why my 3-bet out of the big blind was pretty low.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the main thing to just consider is that the main thing we want to worry about is their 4-bet frequency. And if it's low, there's kind of nothing they can do. Like even if they call you, then post flop, they're going to play too passively. Like they're going to under check raise the flop as well. So not only do you not get 4-bet enough, you don't get check raised on the flop enough. So then you basically get to the turn with almost your whole range. If you're like basically range betting as well, which you can do on most boards, then you're basically getting to the turn for free with like your whole range. So you just don't get any of your equity denied, which is like super good when you're in position.
Sure.
And now, okay, so this is like their 3-bets and their fold versus 4-bet as well. So I've highlighted here, like, so this is the bottom row here is the big blind. So like big blind versus button, like this is super low from the pool, 7.6% 3-bet. Let's see what GTO is here. So yeah, GTO is like 13%. So yeah, they're like way under on that. And then big blind versus small blind, they're at 12%. And in this sim, it's okay. It's 15, like 15, yeah. So they're a little bit under there. But yeah, the big one is this like big blind versus button, big blind versus cutoff. So again, what that essentially means is like if you're playing in the button, you can actually open a bit wider against the big blind, because you're not going to get 3-bet often enough. And then you've got post-flop leaks as well on top of that. So hands that are like definitely the hands that are mixed opens, you can just like open all the time. But then hands like that are close, it's like around the edge. So like this queen 8 off, which is, it's like minus 0.01 big blinds to open. But like definitely with the pool leaks, that's gonna be
raise it up for sure.
That's going to be a raise, yeah. So nice thing about like Wizard, I don't know if you've got a Wizard sub, but nice thing is you can like look at these pre-flop frequencies, and you can start to like see like here this Jack 3 suited. It is like 0 EV to open. So yeah, you can sort of look at the frequencies and the EVs and see which hands you might want to exploitatively open rather than fold.
Okay.
And then when you do get 3-bet, so this is something you mentioned, right? It's like you weren't necessarily, well, that was the 4-bets, but like say when you face this 3-bet from the big blind, you definitely don't want to be continuing like how the sim plays, because that they're just not 3-betting enough, and the range is actually going to be too strong as well. So one thing you can do, which I advise, is like, okay, so button versus big blind, they should be 3-betting 13%. They're 3-betting like more like 8. So you could look at like an earlier position. So like say you could go back a position here in this case. So cutoff versus big blind. Now the 3-bet frequency is like 9. And then you could continue like more like this. So you can see like pocket 10s is already a mix. Whereas button versus big blind, it's going to be pure continue, I think. Let's have a look. Yep. Button versus big blind, it's a mix, raise and call. But cutoff versus big blind 10s is like mixing, call and fold. So you can see the difference in the continuing strategy here. So it's like a nice shortcut that you can use if you know that the pool is not hitting the right frequencies, and you can use this for like 4-bet spots as well. When you're facing the 4-bets from the passive guys, just go back a position or even more if you have to, and then play the defense from the earlier position. So you still open like the button range or wider, but then when they actually 3-bet you just defend with like this range.
Okay, yeah, we'll use one position back against them. Okay, good.
And that's kind of like how you can sort of shortcut your way to playing like a exploitative preflop. Like obviously the best way would be if you know their range, you can take the range from mass data, put it in a solver, solve it, then you're going to get like the most accurate strategy. But that's like super time consuming and not even honestly necessary unless you're playing like high stakes. So this shortcut is pretty good.
Okay, that's good.
And then I just sort of had a quick look at their post-flop frequencies, but we'll look at that in MDA Demon as well. And then, yeah, they're like under check raising the flop. So when they play as the OOP pre-flop caller in 3-bet pots, they're just generally passive post-flop as well. So that just like confirms that when you're in position, you can 3-bet them. aggressively. Okay. Oh yeah, and the other thing I forgot to mention was that for the regs, I also excluded hands that they played against fish. So the stats that we're looking at are exclusively regs playing against other regs.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
Okay, we've got some BVB stuff. So again, we already saw that they're under 4-betting BVB. So we can 3-bet them more from the big blind. And yeah, like it's already a pretty high frequency in like GTO wise, but you can get pretty out of line here because if they're not playing back at you, you can just tune up these frequencies quite a lot. On GG, like that you've got like the in-game HUD, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of shows like VPIP, PFR, 3-bet. I heard that the 3-bet is actually not that accurate on there. Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate it is. I mean, it looks like it might be accurate to me because generally, like when I see a guy 3-betting like crazy, his percentage on the HUD is up there, and when they're not, it's like 0.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think I heard that somewhere, but I'm not sure why exactly.
I know it's pretty accurate on mine. I mean, mine is I think 12%. I've got like 100 and something thousand hands. That's pretty accurate for mine, but I mean, I see. I'm not even 100% sure how many hands in game they're actually tracking. If it maxes out or at 100, or like when they have like 300 or 400 hands in a session, if it's tracking all of those. Because I don't know. I probably should email GG and ask them that. But
yeah, I'm not too sure. But with that, do you know if it's possible to get like these HUDs on these like online sites for your pool? Because I know like you've got like sites like Smart Hand, for example, and you can like look up players and you can get like their stats without actually having played hands against them, and you can get like post-flop frequencies and stuff. I know that they have like GG the
smart HUD.
They have like the main GG pool, but I'm not sure if they have the ring fence pools. But it would be something good to note because, for example, if someone has access to like this site, for example, on your pool, then they can like look up your post flop stats, which kind of makes it that it becomes a little bit more dangerous to like hard exploit, especially on earlier streets, because it will show up in that HUD. But yeah, I'm not sure if like sites like that support your pool.
I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Because if all you've got, or if all everyone's got is the GG in-game HUD, then like it's pretty limited in terms of what they can see about your game, and you can definitely push things harder with exploits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say for pre-flop about the regs. So I'll go into like some post-flop stuff. Okay, so I actually loaded your pool into MDA Demon, so we can see like their frequencies across different formations and different lines. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this interface at all, but I'll just like point out which frequencies are which and stuff like that. And with this sample, like it's decent for the flop. We can kind of look at frequencies on the turn, but then by the river the sample gets pretty small for the pool. But then we can look at like general 50 NL data that I have across a much larger sample to sort of fill those gaps. And yeah, the first sort of thing that I've noticed from the pool is, say like button versus big blind, when they play as the big blind and they check the flop, you can see here, like after they check the flop, this is their reactions to when we c-bet as the button. And so they're overfolding to the c-bet and they're under check raising. So that's like pretty pretty bad. Like it means we can c-bet more frequently, and we're just not going to get punished. They're not raising enough.
Yeah, I started increasing my my c-betting percentages like a lot. Definitely. That was one of the things I was studying too, because I noticed that myself, is that they're folding too much. They're not check raising enough at all.
Yep. And then the other thing is, like in this formation, actually I'm just going to group up like all of the out of position caller spots. So like big blind versus the field essentially. And then this is like the big one. So like you may have already heard about this leak because it kind of exists everywhere, to be honest. But like if the flop checks through, and then they check the turn, and then we go for like a delayed c-bet, there's this like massive overfold going on compared to GTO.
Oh yeah, that's kind of what I was saying about like when I'm in the big blind and if they start checking, like their range just shrinks away and I start overbetting, and usually it was working extremely well for me. They just fold everything.
Mm-hmm. And like we can look at it like by bet size as well. So you can see like against even like B50, they're folding like in this sample like 74% of the time. GTO is more like 50%, but like all the sizes are overfolded. So yeah, this like delay c-bet line is just going to absolutely print with bluffs against this pool, because I mean most pools have this, but this is like more extreme than normal. So it kind of means that you have like you've got this overfold on the flop, but you've got this even bigger overfold on the turn, and yeah, you can get pretty exploitative depending on how far you want to go. But essentially, like delaying with bluffs, so checking the flop and then bluffing the turn, is going to be like a really high EV line with bluffs.
Okay. Delay c-bet on the long end on turn or overfolding.
So yeah, so like yeah, if you have a bluff, if you have a weak hand like a trash hand on the flop, you can just look to check and then bluff later, bluff on the turn, because that hand doesn't even really have like yeah, they might bet into you on the turn, for example, but that hand doesn't care, right? If you have like a pure trash hand and you get bet into on the turn, then you just fold because your hand was like 0 EV or 0 like low equity hand anyway. But then the times they do check, you just get to print like turning your hand into a bluff in that line. And you kind of want to like structure your ranges in a way where you make your ranges like weak in the lines where they are like massively overfolding. You kind of want to like funnel your weak hands into those lines.
Okay.
And then again, we know that they're not 3-betting enough big blind versus button pre-flop. And then we see leaks like this massive fold here on the turn. So again, that's going to incentivize like hands pre-flop, like weaker hands pre-flop to be able to open, because you're not getting 3-bet enough. And not only that, you've got this like super overfold going on in lines like this. So yeah, you can really just like hammer them with bluffs. Yep. And then, so if I look at like, and as well, this is kind of like a leak that you see across the board. So if I look at like hands that I've got from various sites like GG, like the main GG site, iPoker and WPN, again, like that leak exists. Check fold. It exists, just not as high a frequency as in your pool. But that's still a leak that exists.
10% higher in my pool, I guess, almost.
Yeah. And then
that's a lot.
The kind of crazy thing is like, so even if they call that bet, so if they check the flop, call the turn, and then you bet again on the river, if we look at like by bet size, you still start seeing like, you still see overfolds. So they overfold to the turn delay, and they still overfold the river against some of these sizes. So yeah, so you don't even have to be scared to like continue bluffing the river in this line. Like you can check the flop, then bet the turn and bet the river. Pretty often with bluffs. And then another line like where, so again, I'm looking at the public pool, like the bigger sample, but like this check call check fold line again is like overfolded a lot at these kind of stakes on the river, and you can see, so where we've got like GTO data from our GTO bots, then we've got this bluff EV metric, so you can see like how much additional EV you can expect with a bluff compared to GTO, and it's represented as a percentage of the pot. So like this B50 size in the bet check bet line, your bluffs can expect like 18% of the pot more in terms of EV. That's what, again, this B90 size as well, and then B200. So any of these sizes work. And so like I've seen some people who try and like do MDA, and they say like, what's the best size I should use with a bluff in a particular line? But because all of these sizes are working, yes, some have like higher bluff EV than others, but what you can actually just do is just put the bluff into the size that makes sense in theory. So if the hand has like really good blockers, like, sure, go ahead, put it into like an overbet size. Whereas if the hand doesn't have great blockers, then maybe you want to go for like a B50. But the main thing to note is just that when you see these big overfolds, you just don't want to be checking down with like garbage on the river, essentially. You should just always be bluffing.
I'm bluffing with good blockers in my worst hands, like 9 high, trying to get them to fold ace high or king high or small pair, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When you say B50, do you mean 50% of pot? Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't usually use that size, especially on the river. I'm usually using 75% or overbet if I'm bluffing. Which I don't know, maybe that's not good, but
the B50 works as well, really well.
yeah, okay.
Something to know. And even like in the triple barrel line, that check call, check call, check fold, the B50 is actually a pretty good line data wise.
Okay.
I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe it's just where people see it and they just think, looks kind of like value. If you'd like to study population trends the same way we do in this session, you can use MDA Demon, the tool I'm actively developing. There's a free tier available and we're improving it all the time. You can sign up and start exploring the data for free, the link's down below. So yeah, that's kind of like when they play as the big blind. The other thing is when they play as like the button, I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough sample size here. No, I've not got enough sample to look at the range, but okay, let's look at the bigger sample. So another thing you'll find at these stakes is, so if we look at like the range construction, so if the top line, this is like when they play as the button with a big blind, and then they go for a double barrel, so they bet the flop at the turn. The top line is the range from Regs, and then the bottom line is GTO. So you can see like the range construction here when they like barrel the turn is too strong. So there's like too much of the range is top pair or better, not enough of the weak hands. And that's going to be true. Like that's just a general trend that you see at low stakes. Like Regs are just betting or c-betting too strong, too equity driven. They're missing bluffs. The thing is, like when you play in position, you see on the turn, you see like a lot of these ace high type bluffs. Even for like overbets. I don't know if that's like a line you've sort of studied much, but so if I pick like a random flop and go to like a double barrel line, so let's just do like B50 and then do like some kind of brick on the turn, so the turn's going to be an overbet from in position. And then you'll see like something like A7 is like overbetting the turn here.
Yeah.
And it's just like a naked ace high basically. But the kind of way it works is it's pretty nice. It folds out pairs, folds out a better ace high. And because you're in position, if you get a call, you have this like luxury where you can hit an ace. And then what you see,
you still got backup for if you get.
Yeah, and what you can do is you can basically hit an ace and check back. So you just get to like catch up and then check your kind of like mediocre hand that's now outdrawn the opponent's like Queen X, which like was the main hand that's calling on the turn. But like out of position, you can't really play that way because you can't just check the river and see a showdown. You've got to check the river and potentially face another bet, in which case those kind of like marginal hands will just be like 0 EV again. So out of position, you see like the turn double barrel is just like way more like equity driven, whereas in position you see way more just like trashy stuff barreling the turn, and that's kind of like what the regs tend to miss at low stakes. They miss these like ace high kind of double barrels, and then they don't check back enough like top pair, because like yeah, they're just like, oh, I've got a top pair, need some protection or something, and then they just bet again, rather than like in the solver, a lot of top pairs like mixing on the turn.
Okay.
So when, like, knowing that, we kind of want to play our defense range in a way that kind of makes their, or like naturally exploits their range construction. And so when we play as the caller, like in the big blind, essentially we don't want to face this range with like too many hands that have to like defend, that are like quite low EV on the turn, like facing the bet. So you essentially kind of want to like try and dodge that line if you can, with like especially hands like, say, like top pair on the flop. You know, you've got to call the flop, and you know you've got to call again on the turn, but you kind of feel bad about it because you know that their range is too strong, and you're going to be like...
Yeah, actually, that is something that I've been working on and struggling with, is when you're capping your own range, calling out a position, right? Check, call, and then their range is so strong, you just have to fold on the river.
Yeah, so kind of like what you essentially want to do, and the way you want to kind of think about it, is that the way you exploit this, so the way you play into this is just like calling down with like bluff catchers. Like if you just call down with bluff catchers, then they're kind of justified in how they're playing. They're just like value betting the hell out of you. So what you kind of want to do is like, you want to make your calling range on the flop more polarized. So you actually want to like call more nutted hands on the flop, like, so slow play, for example. Because then, let's say, okay, you just check call a set on the flop. Now they bet into you with this strong range on the turn. Now you check raise on the turn, and they're just in trouble because they've got like loads of hands that were in a bad spot now.
Yeah.
So yeah, something to like, something to pay attention to, or something to note. Like if you're in the big blind here, like, yeah, okay, pocket nines, it's a mix in the solver, but against these kind of players that are just betting flop, betting turn with like too much of a top pair plus type of range, well, this hand becomes really nice to just check call the flop and then put the raise in on the turn now. And then you don't want to like, so say you've got, let's say you've got, what's an example here? I don't know, like queen jack, for example. Yeah, it's like mixing like low frequency raise on the flop. Well, yeah, maybe you just want to take that and raise it on the flop, because yeah, they're gonna like, they're gonna have to play this kind of defense, which, yeah, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but the main thing is that you're taking the hand out of the line where it gets dominated, because if you just check call and then they bet again on the turn, it's gonna like really suck, because if it comes a brick and they go for like, I don't know, I mean, I guess they use like sizes that are small too often, but yeah, your hand is, it's already like a bluff catcher on the turn, to be honest. But yeah, you essentially kind of don't want to be calling down with these types of hands. So pretty nice to, if you can, like go for a raise directly on the flop yourself with that sort of hand. Like obviously, if you've got like a weak kicker, then that's a hand that just doesn't want to check raise. So you still want to like know the theory defense, but you kind of want to know which hands are the mixes, and then from there you can take lines that like have better incentives for your specific hand types.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that spot. So yeah, button versus big blind is like the spot you just really want to nail down theory wise. And then like when you get to the river, they're just overfolding like all the lines. So when they play like button versus big blind, if they bet the flop, check the turn, then they're just like overfolding the river again massively. So again, like when they bet the flop, your hands that are like weak hands are gonna do really well as a call.
Okay.
So like here in this spot, like all this kind of like mixed stuff, the stuff around the edges is going to do well as a defend on the flop. See what you don't want to do is overfold the flop. You actually want to kind of overcall, because you're going to get to bluff them on the river. You can overbluff them on the river when they check back the turn.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe I have been folding to c-bets a little bit too much.
Yeah, that was something I noticed actually. So when I looked
but I had been trying to work on it, and like, it's a work in progress. So I noticed that from my stats, and I had been trying to adjust anyways.
Yeah, this is like your stats. So like check fold is like a bit too high on the flop. Yeah. And you can just like use like a trainer to just drill that to get a feel for like these thresholds. But if anything, you want to go the other way. You want to go against this pool. You want to go like get more sticky on the flop, because you're just going to be able to bluff them off on the river. So that's like button versus big blind. And then yeah, BVB is kind of like the same again, to be honest. So the regs are like, so when they play as the razor, they're just overfolding everywhere, like check fold on the flop 60% when they play as the small blind. That's like massive. When they play as the big blind as the caller, overfolding the flop massively. So again, you can open wider BVB because they're just folding so much on that line, and then when they check the flop and you delay c-bet, overfolding there too.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's just like all the lines work. Like your value is gonna underperform against this pool, and your bluffs are gonna overperform. So you really kind of want to think in terms of like, how can I maximally punish them with my weak hands? My value, you're not gonna get paid with value anyway. Like they're just overfolding everywhere. And then you're also trying to think like, how can I dodge the lines where they're too strong? And that might be by like going for a raise yourself on the flop, so you don't end up in some like calling line where
that's kind of cool. Great. That's good what you just said. That's what I've been thinking about. It's better to, like, when you're capping yourself, it's better to put in a raise to see if they're going to continue rather than just check call, right?
Yeah, and it just takes you out of your hand, out of the line where they're just making their range like way too strong. Like you don't have an incentive to like cool down unless they're bluffing you. Like like a top pair type hand, it cools down in theory because it wins against bluffs sometimes, but in like a triple line or something. But yeah, that's just not happening enough in this pool. So you kind of just don't want to. You want to screw them up by putting like a more polar range into those lines. Because if you just put like a mixture of like weaker hands and super strong hands into that line, then now they're just like in trouble because you get to like bluff raise them on the turn or on the river, and then all their hands basically become like bluff catchers, or a lot of their hands. And then I found a few hands as well. Like I guess it's probably like stuff we've covered and stuff that you probably know. But I found a few hands from your database. Like, for example, what's this one? So this is like BVB. So small blind raises. We continue. I like that continue. And then like, okay, looks like pretty good flop for the small blind. He checks. We check back. Turn. Basically a brick. He checks. We check again. And then river. Again, like it's a pretty static board to be honest. But like he checks again. And then this is just like bottom of range, right? So this is like a hand that we definitely want to be bluffing here on the river.
Yeah, for sure. But the thing is that I don't know who this guy is exactly, but it's possible that I know who this guy is, and he's just going to be check calling no matter what I do. So you're right though. Like there's no way I can win that hand by not bluffing.
Yeah, and the thing I kind of wanted to, the reason why I highlighted it was, let's just run it in wizard. Ace, queen, 8. So check, check. 7, check, check. 6, red. So yeah, you'll see like in the solver, it's just a pure bet. So it's actually got some EV as a bluff. Like checking is 0 EV, obviously, but it actually makes some money as a bluff in theory, and you can just basically see that there's not much air that's checking down in this line, and that's just like a theory thing. So in general, like when you play big blind versus small blind, because the way it works is like pre-flop. What was I going to say? So, yeah, so it's different to, actually, no, that's not what I was going to say. Yeah, so basically pre-flop, it's different to like button versus big blind, because button versus big blind, when you're the big blind, you can't like bluff like all your air on the river in the check down line. But like generally in like BVB, when you're the big blind, you'll see it's in this sort of check down lines, you'll see like not a lot of air giving up. I think we got another example. And this is another one. 10-8 suited. So again, that's going to be like a pretty nice hand to 3-bet quite often against this pool.
Okay.
But yeah, check on the flop. Again, like it's going to be a mix on the flop. I don't know, are you using like RNG at all for some of these?
Sorry, what exactly is RNG?
Like a random number generator.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, absolutely I am. But I really I really only use it for pre-flop decisions, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like frequencies of out of position, or
because like this hand, like 10-8 suited, right, on the flop from in position, it's like a mix between bet and check, but we know that their check fold frequency in this spot is like super high. So yeah, you kind of want you can kind of hammer them here in this sort of spot with this type of hand, because they're just not gonna call you enough. And then on the turn,
be betting here for sure.
Again, like that's overfolded as well. So flops checked, turns checked. Again, this is a spot where they're just going to overfold a lot. So
also, I picked up a lot of equity there, right?
Yeah. And then river, kind of same as the last hand. Like got 10 high. Yeah, I mean we got a missed flush draw, but doesn't really matter in this spot because it's 10 high. We're in position, like BBB. So if I look at the sim, king turn, and what was it on the river? 7. So check down to the big blind. And so 10-8 of spades is again just like a pure bluff here on the river. And it's the same sort of thing, like not much air, to be honest, is checking down and giving up. So just something to note, like in theory, that's kind of how it works. And definitely like as an exploit, you're going to be getting like way more folds than theory. So if it's a bluff in theory, like you 100% want to take it, like exploit wise.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't know who these players are in that, but when I'm mass multi-tabling, playing like 5 or 6, sometimes I will miss spots. And if it's a player that I know from previous hands, maybe I take that line when that's a losing line anyways. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But if like I sit here and look at it with you, definitely I would want to be smashing the bet button on those hands.
Yep. And then the only other one I sort of highlighted was, again, BVB. Like BVB is just such a good spot for exploits because it's like wide ranges, and it's just tough to play right, and you've got like the biggest deviations going on. But this one is just like, it's like the leak that you kind of mentioned yourself, right? So flop, like this paired flop, we got a king high, check on third from in position. And that's just going to be like a pure defend in theory. Okay. On this sort of board. So again, just something like that you might want to add to your sort of study list. Playing these BVB and button versus big blind, like flop defense, especially against like small to medium bets.
Okay. Yeah, okay. BVB. All right, sounds good.
Yeah, I think that's mostly what I wanted to cover. Is there anything that you particularly want to know, or any questions you have?
One thing I actually wanted to ask you was specifically regarding like pocket queens and pocket jacks. I don't know if it's just because I'm not good enough, but I find it really hard to fold pocket queens. Like I've done it maybe 5 or 6 times when it's just such strong. When I just know that they got me beat, right? Like kings or aces or multi-way jams. But I just find it that's a lot of the times I think like, yes, I got to fold this, but then I just call and they have it, kings or aces. Like, is it just like position dependent? I should be studying on where to play these or where not to in the trainer, maybe?
Yeah, you definitely want to know like the spots in this pool. You probably you want to know like the spots where those hands become like fringe or where they become indifferent. Because when they become, as soon as they become like indifferent between folding and calling, then yeah, against like this tight pool, you don't want to You want to look to avoid stacking off.
Maybe that's what I'll do in GTO Wizard. Just practice queens and jacks pre-flop when they're going to be folding and when they're going to be calling or jamming.
But yeah,
I think that's one of my biggest leaks.
I mean, in general, like, it's never going to be like a massive mistake, like, in terms of like big blinds. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too much. But as long as you have an idea of what the GTO strategy is supposed to look like,
Okay.
but that's the first point, because you don't want to like start thinking, oh, okay, I need to fold pocket queens more often without first knowing, okay, in the solver it's like always calling, or in the solver it can mix folds. Like you first need to know like what the equilibrium is, and then you can start making adjustments.
Yeah, you're right. No, that's one thing I definitely don't want to do is over adjust to something, because I've done that, and then I've over adjusted on some things and then realized I'm doing it wrong, and then my win rate was going way up after I went back to what I was doing before. So I don't want to over adjust. I think that's definitely not what I want to do.
One other small like detail, like say like in this hijack versus cutoff facing 3-bet spot, like because we mentioned like, okay, tightening up if they are passive, or like if they're not 3-betting enough. But there is like one other kind of like way you could think about going about it, is that if they are too tight pre-flop, then actually what kind of happens is like the pocket pairs, like these like small pocket pairs, actually can win a bit more EV post flop when they make a set, because they're going to run into like aces and kings more often, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
So if you playing like against someone kind of passive, you might want to consider, okay, like there is potential to call with these hands, because you either hit a set and you stack them, or you miss and you get to like comfortably fold on the flop. And that's kind of easy. The hands that you really don't want to play against these guys is these like suited connectors, like, because they're just going to get dominated too often.
Okay, that's an excellent point. Yeah.
So you kind of want to think about the type of hand class and what its kind of job is, and then from there, like if you know your opponent, you can use the right weapons against that opponent. So if conversely, if you play against a loose guy pre-flop who 3-bets a lot, now it's kind of the reverse. You don't actually want to play these pocket pairs, because when you hit a set, you go for a raise, they're going to have a bunch of bluffs that are going to fold now. So it's kind of it kind of flips, and then what you want is you do the opposite. Yeah, you want more of the suited connectors, because now you can like you can make like a semi bluff, like a raise at some point, and you're going to get a bunch of folds.
That's actually an excellent point that you just told me. Like with the high suited connectors, say even cutoff versus button, like I would be folding king jack off to 3-bet, or even mostly ace jack off, because their value range just has you dominated. But it's also this, if they're playing tight, it's also the same, even if they are suited, right? Like queen jack suited, king jack is sometimes a 4-bet, but
yeah, it's only really the suited ones that are going to continue anyway.
Yeah, but if they're playing ultra tight, like it maybe exploiting it by folding, because like unless you make a flush or a straight, you're still going to be crushed if you're in their value range, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can do the same kind of thing. Like you can just go back a position, let's say, so then you can play as if you were playing hijack versus button, and then you'll just see something a bit tighter going on. If they're like super tight, maybe you want to go like see, that's like a 7 versus low jack, it's like 7%, whereas versus cutoff it's like 11. So yeah, you could do like low jack versus button against like a tight guy, and then just kind of like continue that kind of range.
Yeah, okay, perfect.